This week in our series of reports on UFOs, we learned a number of things. That not everybody who sees a UFO is crazy, that our government has lied about UFO information, that it's withheld UFO files, and even spied on UFO witnesses. We've also heard from scientists who say life elsewhere in the universe is virtually a certainty.
In the year 2003, a team of Russian and American scientists at the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research in Dubna, Russia, discovered and synthesized a new element, which has since been added to the periodic table as element 115, also known as moscovium. 14 years prior, on May 15, 1989, a mysterious man appeared in a TV interview with investigative reporter George Knapp on Las Vegas TV station KLAS. Under the pseudonym Dennis, and with his face hidden, he discussed his employment as a defense contractor and physicist at Area S4, a facility located 15 miles south of Area 51, where he allegedly worked to reverse engineer alien technology for the United States military.
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs, that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
In the same interview, the man claimed to have examined an alien craft that ran on an antimatter reactor powered by a stable version of element 115, which had not yet been synthesized in 1989. The live interview with the shadowy Dennis drew international attention at the time, and bits were broadcast on several European radio stations and in a nationally televised special in Japan. In a subsequent interview, the man appeared unmasked and revealed his real name as Robert Lazar. A young physicist working on nuclear weapon development and other physics projects at the Los Alamos National Labs in New Mexico, Bob Lazar appeared on their front page of the Los Alamos newspapers with his extremely loud jet-powered Honda car, which he drove to work every day. The same day the news article came out, Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb, was giving a lecture at the Los Alamos National Labs, which Bob Lazar planned to attend. Bob got to the lecture very early, and when he arrived, Edward Teller was near the entrance, leaning on a wall and reading the Los Alamos newspaper, specifically the article about Robert Lazar. Excited to meet Teller, Bob promptly introduced himself, pointing out the fact that he was the man in the article Teller was reading in the newspaper. They had a conversation about physics, but nothing more came out of it. Fast forward 2 years, and Bob had left Las Vegas and the Los Alamos labs to pursue a new path. He was applying for various jobs in the science field. One of the people he sent his resume to was Edward Teller, referencing their meeting at Teller's lecture at the Los Alamos labs. Teller replied to Bob and gave him a contact at the company called EG&G, a United States national defense contractor and provider of management and technical services. Bob Lazar ends up getting hired by EG&G's Special Projects Department, located at McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, for a job which was described only as advanced propulsion development in a remote location. Located on the outskirts of Groom Lake in the New Mexico desert, Area S4 is part of the largest secret military complex known as Area 51. The highly secretive location served for the development of the F-117 and B-2 stealth planes, as well as many other exotic projects, most of which remain secret to this day. For years, there was speculation about the installation, especially amid growing reports of UFO sightings in the vicinity. The site became known as Area 51 because of its designation on maps of the Atomic Energy Commission. Bob Lazar's interview on KLAS contributed to bringing the secret test site into the spotlight. The compound was accessible by airplane only, as it is located in the middle of the Nevada desert, 800 kilometers outside of Las Vegas, and surrounded by a vast mountain range. Employees of the compound would commute day and night on the Janet flights, named for the operating company Janet Airlines, which belonged to EG&G. These unmarked planes took off from the Las Vegas airport and landed at a remote terminal where employees would embark in buses with the windows blacked out across the desert to the top-secret military facility. Lazar worked intermittently at the base and was appointed to be at the site for weeks at a time. He described the working environment as being very compartmentalized. He was paired with another scientist named Barry, and he was only allowed to collaborate and exchange ideas with him. Their work was constantly supervised by their superior Dennis, who would regularly check on their progress and report higher up the hierarchy. The technology Lazar worked on was of a very particular nature. His task was to learn as much as possible about the functioning of a very particular device. It was a sphere, metallic in appearance and approximately the size of a basketball. The object had some very interesting characteristics. Lazar claims that the device was an anti-gravity generator. It functioned by creating gravity waves and generating its own gravity field. This was a very interesting and bold claim for Lazar to make in 1989, since the most popular theory at the time was that gravity consisted of particles and not waves. The device was topped by a semi-sphere that emitted a force field capable of repulsing anything, even his hand. Bob further explains that the object was part of a saucer-shaped vehicle, which was stored alongside 8 other similar craft in concealed aircraft hangars built into the mountainside, which he alleged were extraterrestrial in origin. He also states that at least 2 of the craft were recovered in archaeological digs a very long time ago. The craft was split into 2 main levels, about 3 feet or 1 meter high. Their interiors looked as if molded from a single piece and felt metallic to the touch. There were no screens, moving parts, or decorations. The craft had 3 seats, which in Lazar's words could only seat a being the size of a child. The reactor was positioned at the center of the upper level, with an antenna extending to the top, surrounded by 3 gravity amplifiers. These connected to gravity emitters on the lower level, which could rotate 180 degrees to output a gravity beam, and the craft would then travel belly first into this distortion field. During his time in the program, Lazar claims he read briefing documents describing the historical involvement of Earth with extraterrestrial beings spanning the past 10,000 years. Lazar has stated that he cannot trust the accuracy of what he read in the briefing documents, as some of the details in the reports could have been fake on purpose and intended to identify him in case he ever leaked the information. As part of a top-secret research project, Bob Lazar was under constant surveillance from his employers, including having his phone tapped. When it was found out Bob's wife was having an affair, the military decided it wasn't a good idea to have a potentially mentally unstable individual working around top-secret alien technology. For this reason, they stopped phoning to instruct Lazar that his presence was required at the base. The problem was that Bob was completely oblivious to the state of his marriage. The military had intercepted communications between Bob's wife and her lover, but he was not aware of the affair. As time went on, he grew increasingly worried and somewhat paranoid. He began to fear he had been kicked off the program, as he was getting no contact from his employers. He started to fear for his life. After all, he was well aware of the nature and importance of what he was working on, and with the amount of power in the US government's hands, he was worried about what could happen to him. Panicked, Bob decided to talk about his experiences with some of his close friends. He wanted to tell them what he knew, so at least if he disappeared, somebody would know. On 3 occasions, Bob and his friends went to a spot in the Nevada mountains to see the test flights of the alien craft. Bob had witnessed these tests when he was working at Area S4 and knew the schedules. As planned, the mysterious crafts appeared in the sky, performing maneuvers that defied the laws of physics. On the 3rd night, the army apprehended Bob and his friends, and Bob was once again brought onto the secret base, this time for debriefing. This is where he learned about his wife's affair and the surveillance the military had on him. But now, Bob had a very big problem. The information he leaked to his friends was top secret, and although he had been released by the army, he now feared for his life more than ever before. Bob had heard about George Knapp, who is very well known for his investigative journalism and interest in top-secret government projects. Knapp listened to Bob's story and was very intrigued. He asked Lazar to take a lie detector test, to which Bob agreed. He was submitted to 6 polygraph tests, conducted by 2 professional polygraphers, to determine if his story was truthful. He passed 5 of the 6 tests. George Knapp decided to air the interview on KLAS Evening News at 5 p.m. on May 15, 1989.
In part 5 of his report, George Knapp introduces us to a local man with an amazing and disturbing story. George.
Gary and Mary Ruth, we've been working on this story for a long time, and we'll tell you right up front that it's going to be hard to swallow at first.
The story made international headlines the next day. Although the Los Alamos National Labs, MIT, and Caltech have repeatedly denied having any records on Bob Lazar, his employment as a physicist at the Los Alamos National Laboratory is mentioned in multiple New Mexico newspapers articles from the summer of 1982. KLAS investigative reporters also found a Robert Lazar in 1982 Los Alamos National Laboratory phone directory, although the laboratory repeatedly denied having any records on him. There is no denying the immense power of the US government, especially within the shadow branches of the military and the Navy, to protect a secret as valuable as technology from an extremely advanced alien civilization. There is absolutely no doubt about the lengths these agencies are ready to go to cover their trails. Bob Lazar's story is one of the most widely known in the UFO community, and what sets it apart are the claims made by Lazar about technology that was only discovered several years later. Although Bob recounted his story several times over the years, the story never changed, which many agree would be unlikely if it was fabricated. Despite the spotlight that was put on him in the years following his appearance on KLAS, Bob tries to live a quiet life. Bob Lazar is one of the most credible eyewitnesses in the alien UFO pantheon. He never profited, and his story never changed. The only reason he came out publicly was to protect himself. It is only in recent years that the documentary about Bob Lazar was made by documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, a close friend and protege of George Knapp. This comes as evidence seems to be pointing to the fact that the Earth is being visited by craft from another world.
Skyfort have obtained a government document that proves the advanced Tic Tac UFO has been tracked by American military intel services for at least 70 years.
For the first time in more than half a century, a House panel is holding a public hearing on mysterious flying objects, popularly known as UFOs.
Today's report analyzed 144 separate sightings of UFOs by the U.S. military, but in only a single case could the government explain what it was.
We're going against the wind. The wind's 120 miles to the west. Look at that thing, dude. Look at that thing. It's rotating. Woohoo!
Roger. There's troubleshooting.
You got moving car.
In 2017, Lazar's place was raided by the FBI and local police, which Lazar theorizes was to recover element 115, a substance he hinted he took from the test site. Thank you for watching this episode of the Mystery Library. Make sure to subscribe and leave a like so we can make more interesting videos.